Happiness is such a complex emotion because when you feel it, you feel whole. You feel like you're a fulfilled person, but then it just fades away so quickly. So it's natural that we try to hold on to it as much as we can. And then we meet someone, we fall in love with them, and suddenly that happiness is more accessible because it comes from that person being in your life and doing all the things that you didn't have before, like texting you good night and asking how your day was and going to dates and so on. But then eventually that happiness also fades because either you get used to them or that person stops doing all those things that made you feel good in the beginning. And reaching that point in a relationship is something that most people just don't talk about. We kind of like just assume that you should be always happy with the person we are dating. I am Paula, the girl that sits here every week to talk about things that happen to all of us, but we don't talk about enough. And today, let's just talk about that moment in a relationship when you feel like you're not as happy as you used to be, or you're not receiving as much as you would want, and what you're supposed to do if that's your situation. You have to be in the situation, you start to think, should I break up with this person? But then you don't want to because you're still holding on to that little bit of either love or happiness or just not being alone. But listen, just because you used to feel so happy with that at the beginning doesn't mean it's going to be like that all the time. And it's okay if at some point you start needing more. It doesn't make you super needy or just a complicated person to date or too much for somebody. Because listen, just because small actions make you happy doesn't mean you have to settle for the bare minimum or for less than you actually want to receive. Maybe you need to identify your needs, communicate them, and embrace them, because I feel like in society we always face this belief that we always have to be grateful for everything we have. It's true, gratitude it's important, but it doesn't mean that you have to settle for less than you actually want just because that's what you're currently receiving. Listen, I don't care if it's because you're doing it because you just want to hold on to that little source of happiness, or you're just too caught up on that person, or you're just scared to be alone, or you don't know how life is going to be if you just don't date that person anymore. It doesn't matter, because you know what? You are too full of life to be half loved. Life's too short not to be loved fully, so don't let that fear of losing that little source of happiness that sometimes is seen as the bare minimum make you settle for a life that feels too small or too basic for you. You only live once, you're only human once. If you're going to feel immensely, if you're going to be loved, make sure that you are loved fully. Like, not because you have the chance to be loved doesn't mean that you have to settle for less just because you think it's better than having nothing. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't enjoy the small things, because small things are beautiful, and actually life is filled with small beautiful things that can fill you with happiness. Like, you've got cats, ice cream, sunsets, swimming pools. There are just so many things, but you know what? Love is not one of them. Love is not a small thing, or it shouldn't be a small thing. You shouldn't have to be settling for a love that makes you feel small, that leaves you wondering if there's more. You know, a type of love that makes you feel like boring, like it's not even worth to be like leaving for that. You know what I mean? Love shouldn't feel that way. And I know it might be scary to ask for more because you're scared of that person leaving, but if you don't communicate what you want, you're never going to make sure that you are with a person that can actually meet those needs. And you're doing nothing wrong by telling people how to love you, or by asking to be loved properly. And by properly, I mean in a way that feels good and enough for you. Because sometimes people love us a lot, but we don't feel loved. That's why it's also important to communicate those needs. Not only like that you're going to make sure that you're with someone that can meet them, but you can also communicate to them how they can make you feel loved enough. And you know what? Once you realize that, what's coming for you, it's going to be immediately better, because you know that at least it's going to be at your level or meet your standards. Like once you embrace your needs, you know that that's exactly what you are going to be looking for and accepting into your life. Listen, at some point you are going to start outgrowing the small things that made you feel amazing at the beginning. Because that's how it works, you know? None of us actually enjoys being just a little bit loved. As time goes by and as relationships get stronger, we expect to be loved deeper. So when the bare minimum becomes your comfort zone, outgrowing that, it's uncomfortable. I know it is. But you know what's also uncomfortable? Staying somewhere that is just too small for you. It's like with clothes, you can put on a shoe that it's way too small for you if you want to, but it's going to be really uncomfortable and it's going to give you blisters, and eventually you're just going to start to bleed, and it's going to be really painful, because it doesn't matter how much you want it or how much you like that shoe, it's just too small for you. It's the same with relationships. That same pain that you feel in your feet when you use shoes that are way too small for you is the exact same pain you are going to feel in your heart when you stay in relationships that are way too small for you. Listen, just because your heart fits in small places doesn't mean it should stay in there all the time. When you want more, when you feel like you need to be loved more, because you know what, as humans we have so much love to give and receive. It should be criminal to settle for a love that just doesn't feel enough, because trust me, there are so many things and so many people out there waiting to love you in ways that you can't even imagine, because we can do it. As humans, we can love that much, and it's not even hard. It's intrinsical to being human. And let's be honest, for as much as the actions considered the bare minimum make you happy, we both know that they also make you feel really bad, because they make you realize all the things that you feel like you're lacking or are lacking in a relationship. Like settling for the bare minimum makes you realize all of the things you're missing out on when it comes to a relationship. Like it makes you realize all of the things you wish you received, but you are not. So even if those small actions, even if the bare minimum makes you feel okay, you and I know that the rest of the time when you're not receiving them, you probably feel really bad. So is it even worth it to stay with someone or to stay in a place that just gives you the bare minimum when most of the time you are actually feeling bad because of that exact same reason? The lack of love and happiness you get from settling for things that are way too small for you is bigger than the moments of happiness you feel when you receive the bare minimum, or when you receive those small actions that make you hold on to someone or to something. So think about if it's even worth it. And remember that just because there are things that make you feel good doesn't mean that you should settle for them and not ask for more when you feel like you want more. It's okay to ask for more. It's okay to communicate and expect people to love you the way you want to be loved. So just make sure you tell them. Make sure you tell other people how you want to be loved, how you feel loved. And that way you can make sure you actually find a person that chooses you and that is willing to love you in a way that feels perfect for you. Thank you so much for being here. Remember that you are not alone. I send you a massive hug and see you next week.